This is a snowflake-free zone.
Not yet, not yet, not yet. There we go.
Sorry about
This
that.
is a snowflake-free zone.
Cheef report. The Cheef report. The Cheef report.
This is a snowflake-free
Cheef
zone.
report. The Cheef report. The Cheef report.
This is a snowflake-free
Cheef
zone.
report. The Cheef report. The Cheef report.
This is a snowflake-free
Cheef
zone.
report.
What's going on, everybody? This is your boy James Cheef, and I'm back at you with the Cheef Report. And today, as you can see, I have the homie Kevin Monte DeRamos on the line with us. Well, on the video with us. But first
time.
there he is. What's going on, Kevin? But first, I want to get into the subjects that we'll be discussing today. And as you see on the screen, those subjects will be: it's up to the voters to surround President Trump with MAGA legislators. That's one thing that I've been discussing a lot that I think really needs to be put out into the public, because there's so many people by right that have so much faith and love for President Trump that they seem to think he can win the primaries on his own, and we're not doing our part. Also, I want to discuss the importance of citizens demanding debates, because what I've been seeing talking to citizen politicians around the nation, their competitors, their incumbent competitors, are not answering to debates. Either they'll agree to a debate and they won't show up, or they just flat out won't even agree to a debate. And the public needs these debates, because we need to know where our politicians, our candidates stand before we can even go vote for them. Another thing I want to talk about is socialists are defeating senior incumbents while constitutional Republicans aren't able to defeat rhinos. And I feel this is important because if we don't secure citizen candidates, constitutional candidates, then we chance a rhino red wave. And that's not going to help us. That's not going to help President Trump's agenda if that red wave is rhino red. I also want to talk about what's more important, locking Hillary Clinton up or making sure that President Trump is surrounded by MAGA legislators. Because if we're not seeing justice now with the people that we have in the House and the Senate, we can't possibly expect to have any type of justice if the Commie-crats win the majority or we have a rhino red wave. So those are some of the things that we'll be discussing today. So let's get into it. Let's bring Kevin back. What's going on, Kevin? How's your day today? How's it up there in Canada?
Hey, we're doing okay up here. It's we have a international film festival that's just starting today, so the streets are alive.
Another one? You were just at the what was it? The Italian Film Festival a couple of months ago, weren't you?
Yes, so I would do the Italian Film Festival, and this is TIFF International Film Festival, which is the largest film festival open to the public.
Okay. Okay, so let's get into the subjects. So right now we're seeing we're in middle of the midterms. There's a lot of distractions going on. And what's most important to you right now when it comes to where we are and securing President Trump with a MAGA majority? How do we go about this? Are you even afraid that we may have a rhino red wave? Because that's one of my fears, that we're going to have a rhino red wave. What about yourself?
Well, I'm from Ohio, so there's a lot of Kasich Republicans. So yes, there's a great fear of rhino red from my perspective. Now, a lot of the Ohio candidates have been supporting Trump, and he's gaining a lot of momentum in Ohio. But I think the midterms are extremely, extremely important here. We've seen President Trump try to do what he campaigned on. And unfortunately, the narrow margins that exist in the Senate he wasn't able to pass the legislation that he attempted to do, and he promised us that he would do. And so I think you're absolutely right. It is time that we rally around uh, people that Trump himself endorses, so that he has no excuses. If we've got a choice between a couple candidates, especially in the primary, and Trump treats out that he would like to support a MAGA candidate, then I think we ought to jump on board and give him the Congress that he wants. If we agree with his agenda, which I personally do, then you.
Yeah, Kevin has one of the worst internet connections up there in up in Canada, so I'll just take it over from here. But what Kevin is basically talking about is we have such a problem right now that you have rhinos that are getting into the midterms by way of the primaries, and good citizen politicians can't seem to get past these rhinos. And there's various reasons that it's going on. A lot of it has to do with state GOPs. We have Kevin back. Yeah, I was just explaining to the people that what we're discussing here is the fact that a lot of constitutional Republicans aren't getting on the ballot because they're not getting past the primaries. And you yourself are one of those constitutional candidates. So explain to people from your own experience how you weren't able to get on the ballot and why you think that was, and also how it's allowing the status quo to stay in place.
Well, let's start with I am a independent, lifelong independent, which it means in Ohio that I have not voted in a primary related to one party or the other. So that's particular to Ohio. But running as an independent, you don't have the parties behind you. And so the signature requirements, the ballot access rules in Ohio are just much more stringent for the independent candidate. And I have some responsibility to bear for not being able to access, underestimating what it would take to access the ballot in Ohio. But I can share that there was pressure from the Republican Party talking to me about not running as an independent. They did not want me on the ballot because it would split the vote between candidates. And at the time, we had a Kasich Republican who ran Ohio into debt as his treasurer, running as the senatorial candidate against me. Luckily, he's got pushed out of the way, and we have a true MAGA candidate running for U.S. Senate in Ohio. But my personal experience was that there was a lot of voter apathy in the sense that I want to wait for the party or Trump, the established parties, to suggest to me who I should support as a Republican. And so what happened for me is that neither the Democratic Party or Republicans, of which 90% of people were registered as one party or the other, felt comfortable supporting a candidate that was seeking just to get on the ballot. And so from my experience, I was excluded right from the very beginning. And so ballot access is such an important role. It gets you into the primaries for one, but it also gets you press coverage too. It's sort of validating you as a candidate to get you some airtime. Not all the press out there is as considerate as you are, James.
Now, some people would be surprised to hear me call considerate. But does it surprise you that in this day and age, with everything that we see, when it comes to how we always point out rhinos, that it is still hard for people to support an independent, even when you tell them that putting your signature on my petition is not saying that you're voting for me. You're just giving me the opportunity to take place in the voting process, the election process, I should say. Does it surprise you that we're still there, as many complaints as we have, that we're not willing to chance an independent, especially when they can go and look at a independent an independent's website, see their policies, and even reach out to them on social networks to prove that as an independent, you or a lot of other independents are actually constitutional Republicans, and they're not trying to split the vote, but they're actually trying to save the republic and the Constitution. Does it surprise you that we're still at that point where we don't trust independence?
Well, it surprises me because I wrote a book, Trump: Why He's Right for America, while there were still 17 nominees for the GOP. So I had my arguments laid out, with the primary argument being nationalism versus globalism. I think I came up and started talking about that long before any news media had even uh, called Trump a nationalist. They were still race baiting and talking about other things related to Trump. So to me, yes, it surprises me a great deal, but I think people have a real opportunity, but also a real responsibility to kind of step up and support candidates that support their president. And so, I mean, if you are looking, to me, for something like some of the Democratic candidates that want to move us more towards the far left, like the socialist leaning, I don't even understand how they can swear to serve and protect the Constitution, a fundamental requirement, a pledge, an oath you give when you seek office. I don't even understand how anybody could vote for them. And I think even in a very heavy Democratic neighborhood, if you chose a socialist versus an independent or any constitutionalist, I can guarantee you that there's going to be Democrats that are going to cross the line and vote for that constitutional candidate because we believe in our republic.
You
Because
know,
we grew up pledge allegiance to the flag, right? Different
exactly.
times.
And I'm smiling because you brought up the fact that socialists are winning in their primaries. And to me, it's really amazing that they are beating 10-term senators. I mean, senior incumbent senators are getting beat by no-name socialists. Yet I always hear Republicans talk about we can't defeat a Republican incumbent because the new person doesn't have the money, or you can't win as a Republican in this area or that area. But yet and still, it seems like every week there are new socialists that are beating well-named incumbents on the left. So what's going on that we can't seem to do that on the right? I personally think that it's a lot of fodder to say, oh, they don't have the money. Well, I don't think Ocasio-Cortez put a lot of money in. I don't think any of these socialists that have been out on the grassroots campaigns, winning their campaigns, had a lot of money. Definitely not more money than the incumbent. And if it takes money to win a campaign, I believe that's a lot of the people's fault because a lot of that money goes to advertisements. So if we're relying on the television to tell us who to vote for instead of using that library in our hands called a smartphone or tablet and researching candidates, it's our fault if it's taking money for us to win, but not necessarily those on the left to win. How do you feel about that? What's the problem that socialists are defeating incumbents on the left, but we can't seem to do it on the right? Oh, Kevin, man, come on, Kevin, you're
I know,
killing me.
man. This is terrible. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to help you out here, but in any case, let me pick up with what I heard. There's a responsibility of people to step up, and I think if I had an ask, it would be simple. Competition is healthy, so why not have competitions in our primaries? Why not every single person that wishes to be on the ballot for the Republican primary? Why shouldn't we as Republicans? I shouldn't say we as Republicans, but why shouldn't Republicans support that candidate? After all, it gets them on the stage and they can share ideas. And by sharing ideas, we better refine our arguments, makes us better prepared for the general election. Instead, we're looking for the party to tell us who their best candidate is for the general election. and that's where they're investing all their money. So it really comes down to one thing, and that is money is voice, and press is very expensive, broadcast is very expensive. So you have the two major parties going, okay, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to wait and see who leads the pack, and then when there's one or maybe two, I'm going to start investing money in picking a winner. And usually the winner that the establishment picks gets into office. And I'm going to say to you that I think a lot of these far left-leaning candidates that are seemingly coming from nowhere, I believe they have establishment support. They're telling their
Oh
established
yeah.
politicians, get out of the way. This is a different time. Let's have a new voice. Let's have a new mantra. And I think the voices of these socialists, these commie-crats, as you call them, are coming from a shift in the Democratic Party platform. So I don't think
Honestly,
these are anomalies. I don't think these are anomalies. I think this is where 2020 is going to be. Do
honestly,
you
I
want a
think it's
socialist or do you want a constitutionalist?
I think Bernie Sanders put this together shortly after the primary was stolen from him when he was running against crooked Hillary. Because if you notice, every one of the socialists that are winning is endorsed by Bernie Sanders. He started with Ocasio-Cortez, took her on the road to get her feet wet a little bit, speaking for other candidates that they support. And then now it's to the point she'll be in one part of the country supporting a socialist. He's in another part of the country supporting a socialist, and both of them are getting these socialist candidates to win. So I honestly believe that the Commie-Crat Party is being hijacked by the socialists. I noticed that Maxine Waters, yeah, Maxine, it was her, came out of, wow, Kevin's internet is, wow, man, we got to do something about that Canadian internet out there, brother. But I noticed Maxine Waters came out and said that the Democrat Party is not a socialist party. So for her to say that seems to me that Bernie Sanders is hijacking the Commie-Crat Party with socialists. What do you feel about that?
My feeling is they understand that Clinton is a sinkhole now. I think
Oh, wow, Kevin. Yeah, Kevin has it. People, if you're in Canada, do not rely on their interweb.
I'm going to refresh here. Let me know when I get back
Are
home.
you using Google Chrome? You're on, brother. Because you got to have Google Chrome with this.
All right, how are we doing?
You're
Are we
there.
back?
We hear you and see you. We hear you.
I am so sorry, man. I got another freeze, but
It's
so I'm
all
back.
good.
So I think they're just giving up on Hillary and her platform. They saw that it didn't work. They've given her endless chances. I mean, she's had a whole career running for president, and it just hasn't worked out for her. And I think the internal party's just shifting more towards Bernie as a means to, hey, we're losing everything anyway. We lost the House, we lost the Senate, we lost the president race. Let's give Bernie Sanders' platform a try. And I think there's just some internal politics that they just haven't established. That's who they're going to be, and
Do you think
this is their way of airing it out in the midterms.
Do you think Bernie in 2016 had more support than crooked Hillary?
Oh, more grassroots support.
Yeah.
So the super delegates to me seems crooked from the start, and I think that gave Clinton a very huge lead in the Democratic primaries. And I'm surprised that she even struggled with that. With that kind of advantage, she should have coasted easily to the nomination, which she did not do.
Yeah. Who do you think?
But I
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
well, I just think she comes off as fake, speaking to an audience, just giving them whatever they want to hear. And I think America's tired of that. They can see the platitudes, and that's why Bernie and Trump resonated. We're tired of the same old things. We want some straight talker out there just telling us how it is.
Who do you think would have won between Bernie Sanders and President Trump?
That's a tough one.
That is.
Even myself at the time, I like both their personalities, so both resonated with me. I had personal experience. I've met both candidates on a couple of occasions, and so I had a personal preference for one's ability to relate to people that they're talking to. Trump was just much more engaging than you can ever imagine when you meet him in person.
True that.
And then the other side, yeah, and so the other side of that is for me, Bernie was talking. He's always been committed to America, and he wanted to introduce socialist ideals. The fact that he actually went out and said he wanted to be a socialist, that sort of changed things for me. And so I don't think he could have won the general election simply because when it came down to pulling the lever, there would have been enough flack about socialism versus our republic and how democracy is sort of this transient beast moving towards a sort of a communist fascist state. And so I think Trump wins in the end. I think Trump beats any candidate that he would have had to face.
Yeah, because I mean, Bernie, he's always been a socialist as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the man honeymooned in Moscow. You know, you're not,
Yeah.
excuse me, you're not honeymooning in Moscow unless you're either a full-blown commie or a socialist. So yeah, now another reason excuse me, another reason I think that is highly important that we get these midterms straight. Right now, Elizabeth Warren and all of her infinite wisdom, she feels that, let me pull this up. Elizabeth Warren on Thursday said it's time for senior administration officials to invoke the 25th Amendment and remove President Trump from office. Warren told CNN, if senior administration officials think the President of the United States is not able to do his job, then they should invoke the 25th Amendment. So here we go, people. We go from this anonymous New York Times leak about what's supposedly going on in the Trump administration, and then a couple days later, we have Senator Elizabeth Warren saying the 25th Amendment should be invoked. And this is why I say the Commie-crats are smart. Everything that they do is well orchestrated, and this is just one of the latest incidents that is well orchestrated because, again, a couple of days after this supposed leak from a person that works inside of the administration, here we have calls for the 25th Amendment being invoked. What's your take on that, Kevin?
Well, the very first thing to say is the New York Times op-ed. I think if you're not willing to sign your name to something, then you have to take it with a grain of salt. And so I would just check the source right there. The other thing is senior officials sound so exclusive, but you should understand that I think there are somewhere close to 1,000, certainly several hundreds of senior officials advising the White House at any one time. So any senior official does not necessarily mean it's somebody sitting side by side with Trump and is actually in these committee meetings. So a very senior official could be any appointment that could have been left over from the Obama administration and just hasn't been replaced because they appear as a bureaucrat doing their job, and that would be considered a senior official if they reported into the White House. So so two strikes there, and then the third thing that really makes me suspicious is when these things start to seem coordinated. And when you get an anonymous op-ed piece, and then you get a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party, who's potentially a presidential candidate in 2020, stepping up and building on top of that, it looks like a plant to me. It looks like it's a manufactured conversation. So I'm very skeptical of any of this. I think Trump is absolutely right. That if that person is affiliated with the White House today, if anything was said in that op-ed that can be traced to a person, I think we ought, I trust that Trump will do his job in clean house there.
Well, how is it?
And you said something about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
you said one last point that there was, Democrats are smart. Well, rhinos are smart too.
Yeah.
And so these are members of the establishment playing the game. And if they're either pro-Trump or anti-Trump, and they're either pro-Constitution or not, in my mind, and we need to hold them accountable.
You know, how is it after all that's been discussed about not trusting anonymous sources that the media can still, after all this time, come out and say, an anonymous source from Trump's White House says, and people are literally falling over their lips to talk about it? I don't even get why anyone on the right is entertaining it. For one, it's just a distraction. And well, part just a distraction, and another part is to invoke this 25th Amendment to see, you know, how much traction that'll gain. But it seems like just months ago we were discussing, as far as people on the right, oh, don't pay attention to those anonymous sources. They're BS. People make those things up. And here we are, this close to the midterm election, and once again we have people entertaining anonymous sources. And it bothers me because it takes, this is why I call it a distraction, because it's taking attention away from candidates that need attention from the constituents. You know, I've even challenged people on Twitter, for every tweet you put out about a commie-crat, put a tweet out about a candidate running in your state or your district, because they need that promotion. Where are our heads at on the right when we're entertaining BS from the media we claim we don't listen to? Kevin's gone again. There he is. You're like the boogeyman up in here tonight, Kevin. But where are our heads at when we're entertaining anonymous sources, but we're not entertaining the candidates in our states and in our districts that want to represent us?
Well, how do I put this? So I haven't even addressed the content of the op-ed piece because I'm still worried about the sources. And you asked something about why is media addressing all of this? I think Kevin Shipp makes a great argument that there
No,
are
not
only
the media.
six.
Not the media. The constituents of the right are entertaining this. I know why the media does it, but I thought we were far past entertaining anonymous sources that the media gives us. I feel that we should be putting that attention on candidates that want to represent us during these primaries, getting them across the finish line instead of worrying about anonymous sources that the media is using to distract us.
One thing that's going to always be true is that entertainment is much easier to consume than is educational material. And so when you think about educational material and doing our research on the candidates, that requires something of us. And that's like work. And it's just easier to sit back after a hard day's work, pop on the channel, and take what's given to you as fact. And I think that's just what we're doing. And so I don't even think it matters. You know what I think? You need that debate like you talk about. You need to give everybody
we're getting
a
to
healthy
that
competition in
the
the primaries.
Yeah,
well, I'm so sorry. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't even.
We're getting to the debates in the next block, but I'm laughing because exactly what you just said about the news being entertainment and researching not being fun is exactly what I was talking about last hour on the Wayne Dupree show. But it was in reference to OAN, the network, because on OAN you can actually get real news, but people don't watch it because it looks boring. And like I said, it's news, it's information. It's supposed to be boring. That just says to me that the mainstream media has done their job and turned what should be news deliverance into an entertainment hour every night. And that's why I was chuckling, because it's so true. We're both right on that. We have to learn that information isn't supposed to be enjoyable, not when it's about preserving our Constitution.
Yeah, I would just say that one thing that's really interesting is, and when I got the light bulb that went off for me is back in I don't know what it was, probably 93, when Katie Couric was negotiating her contract with NBC, I believe it was. It turned out, it came out in the news that her budget was payment budget held by this station, and I was really surprised that this broadcast corporation had news, and it was a news, their entertainment budget, and that really confirms for us that they even considered their FCC mandate of providing news a source of additional revenue and entertainment and loyalty, in a way to gather loyalty. And so we're Walter Cronkites of the news, but it's depressing to me. But it's so much easier to consume, and it is truly entertainment today.
Yeah,
versus news. And it's like if you go into any airport, CNN's running, and used to be like you had the headline news channel where you could see all the headlines, and then you went to CNN for the regular streaming news. Now the regular streaming news is the headline news. I can only 5 minutes of news is aired a day. It's just aired 24/7.
Right. And you would think in a 24/7 news cycle that they would cover a lot more information than they do. I've even had people tell me that no, they can't cover all of those things because the Mueller investigation is just that important. And I'm like, no, it's really not. There's so many other things going on in this country. And to see that people believe that networks don't have enough time to cover other issues, it just blows my mind, because it shows me how entrenched people are into the entertainment aspect of politics. And that's exactly what both parties want, to be honest. It's not just the Communocrats, but the rhinos. They want the voters to be entertained instead of looking at factual information and researching. And that brings me into what you mentioned when it comes to the debates, because I don't understand how we're not having debates. Voters aren't demanding debates, but then you'll see Twitter light up because Candace Owens challenged Ocasio-Cortez to a debate, and Cortez won't debate her. Oh, she must be scared of Candace, and so on. And I'm over here like, wait a minute, people. If we want to see any debates, we should be putting that energy into raising awareness that incumbents are running from debates, instead of putting it into entertainment of a non-candidate, non-politician requesting a debate with the candidate that's already won her primary, is going to win in a general election. I don't see the importance of that, but I do see the importance of an incumbent debating their competitor. And we're just not calling for that. I don't get it. What's your take on the whole debate situation and where our focus is when it comes to not asking the candidates to debate, but want to see the entertainment debate?
Well, I think this is a party issue. The party can define the process. And so we should hold our feet to our party delegates, both in our state and at the federal level, and demand that we give greater ballot access to more candidates. And because there's more candidates, then you have a real reason to have the mandatory debates, which I would support. And what I think is it goes back to healthy competition is healthy. We all need to check ourselves at the door. We should be critiquing ourselves as well as our competitors when we're running for office. And people that are voting should be critiquing us as well on our side. So I don't want you just critiquing my opponent, because like they say, bad news is any news is good news. And so the more airtime you give voicing criticism, for example, Maxine Waters, she seems to be getting, with all this negative press, how could she possibly win? Well, we look at Trump's approval rating is rising, but he gets 70 to 90% criticism on airtime. So it doesn't matter what kind of airplay you get. The fact that you're getting it means something, because then you have people actually researching and feeding the general public information. So the way we can fix that is more ballots, mandatory debates, and for the voters, the citizenry, stop critiquing just the opposition party, but critique your own party as well. and make sure that you get the best candidate on the ballot. And in the general election, the party has the best platform moving forward.
And you know, that's a great point that you bring up. We should start saving some of our critiques for our own candidates. And I guess we don't have any critiques because they don't do debates. I don't think I recall seeing a midterm where I haven't really heard any candidates debate anything. And it's really interesting for me because this is the first time I've been in middle of an election as far as interviewing candidates. And every candidate that I've talked to says the incumbent they're facing will not debate them. And I just don't get why we're not demanding that. It's almost as if we don't care what the policies are. As long as there's an R next to the person's name, we're going to vote for them and we'll be all right. And that scares me. I mean, you look what we are today with what's going on with social networks and the shadow bans and the outright banning that's going on. Today, yeah. Twitter totally took Alex Jones off of Twitter from what I'm hearing. I figure that stems from the altercation with Alex Jones and Marco Rubio yesterday. I've been seeing Republican senators in the hearings with Jack from Twitter yesterday not even bring up shadow banning and the fact that there's bias against conservative users on Twitter. They were all concerned with Russia and foreign entities meddling in our elections. And I'm sitting here like, well, Twitter's meddling in our election when they silence or shadow ban voices of conservatives. And when you mix all that together, no debates, constitutional Republican or just plain independent candidates can't get in. It's all working against us, especially if you have a Republican Senate that is not willing to stand up to social networks that are silencing the voices that are supposed to be their constituents. And then on top of that, Jack didn't even want to meet with the members of Congress because a few of them have voiced their concerns or their outrage about being shadow banned. So does it feel to you that we're kind of outnumbered and that a lot of it has to do with the negligence of the voters not being involved but would rather be entertained?
Well, I think it was Madison that said that every government is formed by people relinquishing their individual rights so that this government can indeed be formed. And that's really important to recognize that no matter how far back in history we go, the people, the citizenry, have the power. So when we say we the people, we're talking about we the U.S. citizens and we the voters. We have the power. And the one voice that our framers gave us was to find a representative for Congress that.
Oh, good old Kevin freezing again. I'm telling y'all, if you ever go to Canada, just make sure you're getting your Wi-Fi from America because Wi-Fi in Canada doesn't seem to be working too well, at least not for Kevin Monte de Ramos. But yeah, I want people to chime in. Hit me on MeWe at James Cheef. Let me know how you feel about the lack of debates that are, well, basically the debates that are not taking place during this midterm year. I saw someone on Periscope just mention that, yeah, we need more debates and less big money. And someone also said basically more constitution and less emotion, because that's another thing I see. Everything is so emotional driven, but it's not constitution driven or republic driven. You back with us, Kevin?
I am back with you. So sorry.
Okay.
I have no idea what's going on, but
that's all right, brother. You're making me work hard, and I need that to really get familiar with this. Since I've started this, working out all the kinks and whatever, so it's good for me. I need this so I can learn how to work through it. But we're good.
Well, luckily it's a simple refresh, so I can come back on. So I don't know what your audience had heard last, but I'm happy to pick up where I left off. It was a relatively short point.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the point was, it does seem overwhelming that I personally experienced some things that were rather intimidating, and I'm sure I had it much easier than somebody running against an established Rhino candidate, especially in a district that is represented by established Republicans. And so it is very difficult to kind of make headway. But our founding fathers gave us one responsibility as we, the people, the citizens of the United States, one responsibility, and that's elect somebody that represents us and send them to the House of Representatives.
True.
So half of Congress is our job to place the right person in there. And the only way we do that is to vet our candidates, to know them personally, and pick the person that most resembles who I am today, not whom I wish to aspire to become. And so don't vote for the rich white man with 3 cars that made his $1 million at age 21, because you're probably not that person. And
Right.
so if that's not who you want representing, find somebody else that's working for a living, has a strong work ethic, is willing to take the time out of his.
He froze again, but in answer to someone's question on Periscope, how would we go about enforcing this? It's all about the citizens starting on a local level. Contact your local GOP leaders. Contact your state GOP and tell them, hey, we want some debates. We want to know what these candidates stand on, what they're about. We want to know where the incumbent stands. We want a chance for the constitutional Republican to get in this primary. It starts local and on the state level.
But,
so we have to.
We'll see where we are.
Oh wow, he just cruised right in. I'm glad to see you back, Kevin.
Hey,
but no,
I apologize to everyone out there. So my apologies.
No, it's all good. They'll blame me anyway, so you're good. But I was explaining to.
I think it's your fault.
Oh, of course. It's always the producer, engineer's fault. I can take it. But I was just explaining what one of the users on Periscope chat had asked, how would we go about enforcing debates? And like I was telling the audience, it starts with the citizens on a local and state level. Contact your city Republican affiliates, your state GOP, and tell them that you want these debates. Kylie McEnany was on the Wayne Dupree show with us last week, and that was one of the things that she said. The citizens have to demand these debates because the incumbent isn't going to do it for the people. They're hiding behind their record by dodging debates. So if the people want them, we can have them. We just have to ask for them, and if asking doesn't work, demand that we get them. What's your take on
Let me offer this. So the parties.
Oh my goodness. So I'm gonna move on ahead and discuss what should be more important to us right now. Should it be locking crooked Hillary up, or should it be surrounding President Trump with the legislators that he needs? Well, we've moved on. We got to keep it going, brother. But now I'm talking about what should be more important to voters: locking crooked Hillary up or surrounding President Trump with the MAGA legislator. Me personally, I feel it's surrounding President Trump with the MAGA legislature, because if we have the Commie-crats win the majority this year, we're not going to get justice. If the red wave everyone is talking about, if the shade of that red is rhino red, we're not going to get justice, because we're seeing that now. So if we want crooked Hillary or anyone else to be locked up and to face justice, which is what all of us want, I think it's more important to surround President Trump with the MAGA legislature that is going to seek that justice versus just waiting to November and voting for anyone with an R next to their name. What's your take on that?
I think you're absolutely right. So I want them all locked up, right? And I think to do that, we have to have a Congress that's friendly to prosecuting one of their own, right? Because these are members of Congress. These are political donors, the heads of major corporations, and there are other officials from prior administrations. So you've got to have a Congress, a MAGA Congress, that's willing to kind of prosecute one of their own as opposed to hide behind the bureaucracy that is Washington, D.C. So I think our first priority is to elect a legislator, elect a representative that supports Donald Trump, his presidency for now. And I have confidence that even today, underneath those 47,000 sealed indictments, there is some pretty heavy stuff. And with the right legislators, the right Supreme Court nominees in place, the right federal judges at the local level, then I believe justice will be sought and we will have them all locked up.
Yeah, I agree, because we can't do it with the people we have now. And I guess that's what makes me so frustrated. We all have the same complaints. No justice. We want justice. But here we are in a midterm year, and the majority of the people on the, I shouldn't even say the majority, but the social network users on the right seem to be more enthused with playing Inspector Gadget and trying to see what Mueller is doing instead of playing Inspector Gadget and researching the candidates in their state or that are running for their district. I don't see how any of us can expect to gain justice, which we do deserve. I don't see how we can expect to attain it, and we're letting we pretty much let all the primaries slide by. And I think Republicans are going to be in for quite a rude awakening when they realize how many rhinos have won primaries and may win in the general. Because I look at a guy like Bob Hugin. He ran on the I support Trump's agenda and so on. As soon as he wins his primary, he says, I'm pro-abortion and pro a couple of other things, and says, I'm a new kind of Republican, one that I'm paraphrasing, has some liberal values. Okay, Rhino. And the people voted him in, along with some dirty tricks from the New Jersey GOP. But the fact remains, there may be people that go in and vote for Bob Hugin because they just didn't pay attention all summer, and he's the Republican, and they don't want Bob Menendez in there, but Hugin is just as bad. That worries me.
It definitely should worry you. And I think this is where individuals need to get involved with their party. Parties are private corporations. They run their own rules. Those are public, and they're up for debate. And you as a member of the party can help them write those rules. And so the reason I bring that up is because you could have a candidate that wins a primary on a certain platform should have a mandate to run that same platform through the general election. The problem is they're going to tell you what you want to hear to get the nomination. Once they got the nomination, they're going to soften their talk because they're going to think that they can persuade some of the independents to vote for them. And to me, that incongruency is actually going to lose the election and give it to the other party. So I think we've got to be really careful. We've got to hold our GOP accountable for putting up candidates that act as they represented themselves. And if they do some rules, to pull them from candidacy and put another nomination up in time for the general election.
Okay, so where do you think we go from here when it comes to the attack on our First Amendment? Many people feel like I feel. It's really as simple as going to another social network. But we have people that don't seem to think that way. I think a lot of it is they don't want to leave the cool school. They don't want to miss what some of the celebrities are saying. I've heard, well, I'll miss President Trump's tweets if I go to MeWe or I go to Gab or Convo. And I'm like, just because you migrate somewhere else doesn't mean you have to deactivate your Twitter, but don't just sit there and keep letting them bash you upside the head with shadow bans and all you do is complain. Open up a social network somewhere else. Open up a social networking account somewhere else, like with MeWe. Keep your Twitter, but don't devote all of your social networking time. If you want to see what Trump is saying, pop in there. Check out his tweets. Copy and paste them, and then go share them on MeWe. But migrate your people over, because I'm really concerned that if we continue to ask the Congress to fix this, then the Congress is going to do just that. Me and you have talked about on my show, if the citizens can't correct an issue amongst themselves, well, the federal government comes in, they regulate it, create new laws, new rules, new regulations, and government just gets bigger. Am I wrong about that?
Well, I think you asked where it's going to go, so let me answer the sort of the overarching question. And this is something that you and I haven't talked about, but only a few people know that I had an app in the App Store. I don't know, I developed maybe 7, 8 years ago, and maybe it was ahead of its time, but I didn't have the wherewithal to maintain it. But I think it's part of the solution to what we're talking about today. If I want to, what I had done is I had created an interface that would allow you to tweet out a message. So a tweet, an email, fax. So it crossed all platforms. And with a tool like this, which is very easy to do today, it would be possible for you to tweet not but just on one platform, but across all platforms.
Oh, wow.
So we had at Sonic Tiger, we said our byline was, why tweet when you can roar? And what happened was, when you punched in a message, you could choose people, whether this was a Facebook post, a Facebook message, a tweet, an email, or a fax. And the reason faxes are there is because celebrities and
Good old Kevin, him and that Canadian Wi-Fi. But yeah, people, until Kevin comes back, I really do think it's just that simple. We have to migrate to another social network. If we allow Congress to come in and regulate social networks, government gets bigger, and they will make some changes to the First Amendment. This is something we could fix ourselves without the complaining that we're doing, because they're free services. First off, what's keeping us there? We haven't signed a contract that we're bound by. We can go elsewhere. I see you're back, Kevin. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that technology and applications like that connect different platforms. What I really liked about the app that we developed was it was a one-way communication. It wasn't meant to facilitate a conversation. It was more meant to push a message out. And we're trying to revive that as social dribble to give small nonprofits a way to a platform for digital marketing, and but more for around services, not marketing products. But give like parties, small parties, and independent candidates a voice. But I just don't see the support for it. Like you said, there's a lot of apathy. I've got my Twitter account, I've got my Instagram account, I've got my Facebook. I feel good. I feel like I'm empowered.
Yeah, and that's another issue. The power that people feel from having their social network accounts. You get thousands of followers, and yeah, that's great. But what is it doing for the country if you have all these followers and hardly anyone's hearing you? I faced that myself. I have 11,200 something followers on Twitter. I could just put out an average tweet and I'll get, some hundreds of likes sometimes. But if I post a link to my show, it's getting like 6 likes and it's only on my timeline. So that's an example of shadow banning. We have Kevin back again. I'm gonna start calling you Jack in the Box. You just be popping in and out.
Well, I was thinking you're like Jack. Yeah, I feel like I'm shadow banned here. Every time I go to talk, you're cutting me off, man. What's going on?
Not me, man. That's you. That's your connection, man.
I don't know what's going on here. I feel offended. You know,
You,
we need to draw you up in front of Congress, have you testify. You
not me,
shadow banning
brother. I wouldn't
my
sabotage my own
independent
show.
candidacy.
I wouldn't sabotage myself, brother. That's not what I do. That's that Canadian Wi-Fi, man. They don't like what we're talking about. Well, Canada is kind of socialist, correct?
Which way?
Canada.
Which one? Oh yeah, it's as close as you come.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna let you off the hook early. We made it through an hour, so
I don't know how. I thank your listeners, man. That's incredible patience if you're there with us. Thank you.
yeah. Well, I saw one that already did blame your problems on me, but I know they were just joking. But no, it's cool though, man. I'm gonna walk you through how to unload some of that stuff on your hard drive and test your Wi-Fi connection.
No, man, it's working hard in the background.
No,
All
I
right.
got you. But no, I thank everyone for joining. And we will be back definitely tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central with another episode of the Cheef Report. It's getting smoother. I'm getting very familiar with the software. Don't have my remote back, but I'm still able to pop the scenes in and out. Now, if I can convince Kevin to stop cutting off his connection on purpose to make me look bad, will be great. So, on that
If you
note,
stop shadow banning me, I'll be back next week.
and for those that don't know, Kevin Monte de Ramos, he's on my show every Thursday. So he definitely will be back next Thursday. And on that note, that ends this episode of the Cheef Report. Everyone stay safe, have a good night, and as always, God bless you all.
This is a snowflake-free zone.
Cheef Report. The Cheef Report. The Cheef Report.
This is a snowflake-free
Cheef
zone.
Report. The Cheef Report. The Cheef Report.
This is a snowflake-free
Cheef
zone.
Report. The Cheef Report. The Cheef Report.
This is a snowflake-free
Cheef
zone.
Report.
All right.
Painful, man. Sorry about that.